domination of the Serie A that Juventus have had, there finally appears to be a genuine contender to the Serie A throne in the shape of Inter Milan. The top two sides in Italy have accounted for 18 matches in the Serie A this season and only one defeat. That too, Inter at the hands of Juventus in a very tightly contested 2-1 affair. As much as the romantic within me wants to say that Atalanta, on the back of their 7-goal victory on the weekend, are right there in the mix, which they are, to be fair, with a 3-point race. This season's Serie A is very likely to go between Inter Milan and Juventus, between Conte and Sarri.
I have to, right off the bat, beg to differ on that. I think it's going to
Right
be...
in the middle of my statement. Okay.
I don't really care because there's only one team in Serie A that's going to win, and that's Juventus. Juventus have won it before and they've done it again with the same squad, and with now a new, rejuvenated Sarri, they're here to take it to the next level.
But that's the thing, right? You talk about Sarri. As much as the Juventus squad is composed of winners, Sarri in his entire 26-year career accounts for a total of 0 league titles. And I think if you compare that to the serial winner that is Antonio Conte, that has won titles everywhere that he has gone, and more interestingly and pertinently is the entire reason that Juventus have their domination.
Who did he win his title with in Italy? Did Conte win his titles with in Italy? It was Juventus. He has the players that if Conte had to go out there and play on the field and against Sarri, then maybe I would have said Conte is going to be the winner. But the Sarri has Ronaldo, a world champion, one of the best players ever, and a squad that has all the depth in the world to take over and complete this season right on the top where they belong.
Well, that's the thing, right? The world beater Ronaldo decided that he wanted to sit out the Lecce game because he was too tired to play 3 games in the same week. And this is a problem with a team of Juventus' quality that's not going to go away the further that the season progresses. He talks about a good squad that Juventus have, and there is no doubt about it. It is absolutely true. They're stacked in every area. But it's not like they're coming up against an Inter team full of chumps. I mean, Inter Milan have strengthened the side this season by bringing in Lukaku and Sanchez in attack. Lukaku has had one of the most prolific seasons of any Inter forward in recent times. Lautaro Martinez also has 6 goals so far this season. The midfield is trying to come together and look good. Their defense, the back three, I would argue, is better than anything that any other team can put out in the league right now. In fact, in their first 5 games within the Serie A, Inter Milan conceded a grand total of 1 goal. That's in stark contrast to what Juventus have done so far this season, wherein in the last 6 games, they've ended up conceding a goal at least once in almost every game, bar one.
But despite that, irrespective of how many goals, in fact, they've actually conceded less goals in the last 9 games that they played than Inter Milan.
The stats are a bit skewed by the last 2 games.
But furthermore, it's not just about the goals that they've conceded. It's the goals that they've scored and the wins that they've had. The big game that the win that you talked about against Inter is actually a true testament to how the season is going to look like. In the previous years, the way Sarri was, I would have seen a 4-3-3, the usual the way it is, and I would have actually been worried about it because the Conte system has the mechanisms to go over and around that 4-3-3 system and beat it. But for once, as a Chelsea fan, sort of begrudgingly I have to admit that Sarri has evolutionized his system. He played a 4-3-1-2 with 2 strikers up front, with Ronaldo up front, which caught Conte off guard, and they won 2-1.
Well, that's the thing. I admit that Sarri's tactics in the Inter Milan game were impressive. I liked the way that he was able to nullify the Inter midfield and thereby dominate the match. But if you look at it from a wider context, the 4-3-1-2 that he's playing right now is only a slight tweak on the 4-3-3 formation, and often within the second halves of games, the system and formation goes back to the usual 4-3-3 system. And my argument within this particular setup is that Sarri has a rigid system, Sarri has a singular way of playing that he plays in every game, and there are a lot of very tactically astute managers in the Italian game that are going to be able to read the way that the Italian giants play, and they're going to be able to come up with a good plan to counter it the way that Lecce were able to do over the weekend. Inter Milan, on the other hand, even though they have a standard formation, which is their 3-5-2 formation that they're likely to play throughout the season, their ways of playing are markedly different. Not only are they able to go from being sat back and playing on the counter in a particular game to going and putting the pressure on other teams and dominating possession over the course of one single match. They're also able to attack from a wide array of areas. So they have the wider threats that they utilize by crossing the balls, low crosses, high crosses into the box. They have greater aerial threat, I would argue, than the strikers at Juventus post. But they also have the ability to overload from the midfield into the attack and create goals and chances that way.
But then again, I agree with that. I have to say Inter is a contender, but what happens with that overload with the midfield is they are susceptible to counterattacks, and we saw that against Parma. Parma play a 4-3-3 system which is based on the counterattack, and Conte's Inter was found wanting. They couldn't stop them. Twice Parma scored, and Parma scored 10 goals in the last 8 games. So it shows that yes, the Conte system is susceptible to counterattacks, and if teams, the highly intellectual managers in the Serie A, if they find that hole in the system, they'll be able to counter it quite easily.
This weekend, Inter Milan were out of a few players, and they've had a lot of high intensity games that they've had to play, not to mention Borussia Dortmund at the weekend, which is a very difficult opponent compared to the teams that Juventus were up against. But on the back of that, in the last couple of games, because of the fact that they've had these injuries and suspensions, they've struggled a bit, whereas ordinarily, Inter Milan, prior to these 2 games, had not conceded a single goal in the first half in their entire Serie A campaign.
That's exactly my point, is the fact that the lack of depth in the team is going to hurt them in the long run. If it was a competition, I could see Conte doing well because of the fewer matches, but because of the lack of depth and because of Conte's stubbornness to be stuck in the system, it's going to cost them in the long run. There are going to be more teams like Parma coming at them, and if 1 or 2 players are not there, I don't see how them getting that unlikely wins.
I don't dispute the greater squad depth that Juventus inevitably have, and I don't dispute that there are flaws within the Inter Milan squad setup as things stand. But Conte's words and the CEO Beppe Marotta's words, as far as the January transfer window goes, seems to suggest that Inter Milan are out looking for quality options for their midfield, for their defense, even for their attack. And I wouldn't be surprised if they got a couple of players in by January. And if they're still in contention at that point in time, I would argue that Conte's superior managerial nose in terms of getting teams over the line, getting consistent runs together of wins, could be the thing that is the deciding factor in the latter parts, particularly if Conte goes by his usual tune of not doing so well in Europe, thereby allowing himself to have a freer calendar in the second half of the season, which we know Juventus is not going to have.
We've all seen Conte's history with getting players into his team. He had that problem when he was at Juventus, part of the reason that why he left. He didn't get the players that he wanted. Same thing sort of happened with him at Chelsea, that he kept saying that he needs players and he wants players.
He got Godin, he got Lukaku, he got Barella, top candidates.
He might not get any more now. So it's just part of his history. I'm just quoting what has happened with him in the past, where he said things and it hasn't come down.
I'm not disputing it's an uphill battle for Inter Milan, but if they can stay injury and suspension free, which if they get knocked out of the Champions League early is an entire possibility, and if they prioritize this area, there's no reason why they can't break that.
All I see are ifs and buts, and I feel that even with all the ifs and buts and all the injuries and the rested players, Juventus still have the squad and have the ability and the mentality to win it.
They have a squad, but a squad that without Cristiano Ronaldo looks a little threadbare in attack and doesn't score a lot of goals. In fact, in the last few games, as many chances as they've created, they haven't scored more than 2 goals in a lot of matches over the course of this season. And, as the season goes on, it's going to catch up to
I
them.
beg to differ. Higuain and Dybala are world-class goal scorers. They're going to find their form. They're going to find goals.
And De Ligt hasn't exactly settled in the best. They're leaking goals. They leak at least 1 goal every game. So I would argue that it's not all roses, and I would also argue that as exciting as the team looks currently, if you look at the midfield trio that Juventus have got, one of the biggest aspects of Sarri ball is to have at least one of those midfielders be able to regularly contribute goals. But the kind of midfielders that he's playing right now, there's not a lot of goals likely to be seen from midfield. A lot of running, sure, but there'll be a lot of reliance on the front players for goals. And if you look at their recent statistics, outside of Ronaldo, Higuain, Dybala, Douglas Costa, Quadrado's playing fullback, so technically he doesn't count. Bernardeschi. None of these guys in the last few seasons have averaged more than 5 to 10 goals a season. Is that gonna be enough in a season when Ronaldo is starting to show signs of, well, dare I say it, finally starting to show signs of slightly older age? Are they going to be able to get enough goals in the latter half of the season when fatigue kicks in for the likes of Higuain and Dybala to be able to carry a title run?
I have to disagree. I think Dybala is going to be getting a lot of goals. He's finally playing in a position where it's more suited for him. Higuain, on the other hand, when he was playing under Sarri in Italy, he scored a record amount of goals. So there's definitely goals in this team, apart from Ronaldo. And Ronaldo is not what the team is. Ronaldo is the X factor. Ronaldo is what's going to take them forward in the Champions League.
I'd also like to put another question to you, just to cap this sort of discussion off. Right now, it all looks rosy. Everybody's happy. Sarri's getting them to play their tippy-tappy passing, and they're getting results. Eventually, always, all the managers, they regress to their mean in terms of the philosophies that they believe in.
Yeah.
And Sarri is very much someone who is a stubborn believer in his philosophy. He's going to settle on a team, especially when Douglas Costa comes back.
Right. He's
He's going to have his preferred 4-3-3. He's going to have his preferred 11 in that 4-3-3. And I'm going to make an argument that he's going to have his preferred 3 substitutes as well, because that's been his way every single club he's been at. Right now, he might have had to chop and change due to injury, suspensions, or whatever the reasons. But eventually, he's going to settle on his usual lineups. And with Juventus, the amount of quality players they have, there are going to be problems that start to surface. And I would imagine that there will be problems that start to surface the moment there's one big bad result in one of the bigger games, and somebody of Ronaldo's quality says that perhaps we need to shy away from Sarri ball. If something like that happens, and I can assure you, Conte with the players in his squad is unlikely to face this problem. If those sorts of problems start to take place at Juventus, Inter Milan have the quality to punish them, even if nobody else in the Serie A does.
I don't think so. I think Sarri has shown it over and over again this season that he's willing to change, he's willing to swap. He's got options now that are not usually fitted into the system, and not like for like changes in options like Ramsey, options that he didn't have before, and players that don't really usually fit in the system, but he's used them whenever needed, when necessary, and you didn't expect Pjanic to play in the position that he's playing in. Sarri's put him
I
in.
think everybody expected him
You
to play in the
did
position that he's playing in.
Not in the system that he's playing in with 3 defenders with him. You didn't expect. You sort of did expect sort of Matuidi and him to be Matuidi and Khedira to be playing in the 4-3 system. But what he's done is changed that evolution. They changed their ideology a little bit. Yes, the style of play. Yes, it's
Costa
similar.
injured, Bernardeschi playing in a diamond for a short period of time does not
The last
represent.
4 or 5 matches out of 8, so it's not really a short period. It's more
For
than
like 40-50 minutes of those matches.
I think
We're running in circles with regards to this particular argument. We'll find out eventually. But the precedent for the last 15-20 odd years of Sarri seems to indicate, contrary to what you're trying to suggest here, that he is a new reformed man. And my argument is that the longer that the season progresses, the more Sarri and Sarri ball will regress to the mean. And my argument also is that with a lot of these players more accustomed to direct play, the likes of Douglas Costa, the likes of Ronaldo, even Higuain, not so much Higuain, but Dybala, I would argue, they're going to start to have problems when Sarri starts to do it. And a lot of teams, when they start to sit back, and a lot of sideward passing becomes the order of the day under Sarri, a lot of the bigger players will start to get frustrated because, as we know, he doesn't have a plan B.
I don't think so. I think things have
Conte
changed.
does.
And Ronaldo is the plan B for every team. You have a player like him, it doesn't matter how the other 10 are playing. He can change the system, he can change the match in a second, and he will do it in the tougher matches. So I think with that, I sort of rest my case on the fact that Juventus is going to win it again.
Campione d'Italia!
I will probably begrudgingly, possibly, have to concede to you that it is likelier that Juventus win the title. But I do think that there are a lot of things that can go wrong at Juventus, and a lot of things that are starting to go right at Inter. And I would also argue, just to sign off, one little tidbit thrown in there, that in the last few jobs that Conte has been, he has always won the title in his first season. This happens to be the first season of Conte. The team are firing, the team are loving it under Conte. There's a January window to come and a Champions League elimination to look forward to.
And the team are second right now. That's all I'm going to say.
By a point or two. It's a hair, it doesn't matter. So, with that, wraps up our discussion on the Serie A title race. Our apologies to Atalanta, our apologies to Napoli.
Apologies to the rest of the Serie A.
And our apologies to Milan fans for everything that Milan does and has been doing for the last 5-6 years. With that, we conclude this video. We would love to see what you think on this particular topic, especially hardcore die-hard Serie A fans, whether you genuinely believe there is a title race this season, or if you expect Juventus to eventually run away with it, particularly if Stefano Sensi stays out long-term for Inter Milan.
Thank you so much, guys. I hope you guys enjoy it. Have a great evening.
Like, share, subscribe.